Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. It is 6 o'clock. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please? Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All of those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. First thing on our agenda is communications with parents, citizens, and staff. First one says legislative guests. I forgot to invite them, so they're not coming tonight. Sorry. Make sure that happens in a future meeting. I know there are people here to talk to us in regards to other things, so I'm going to open it up to you guys to speak your piece. We will not be talking about this particular situation tonight at the board meeting because there is an ongoing investigation, but it will be on next week's agenda. So you are able to address the board and say whatever you'd like, but we will talk about it at next meeting, which is next Tuesday. Okay? So whoever would like to speak first, if you do have something prepared, please give it to Charlene so she can put it in our minutes. Otherwise, we'll let you all speak. Would you like to speak?
I'll go first.
Okay, sure. Just state your name and go ahead.
I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm going to speak.
Okay, no, go ahead.
My name is Alexandria Barnhart. This is my husband, Chris. Some of you may know our son. We have two boys. Hunter, Barbara knows them. Hunter, who is in the 6th grade at Neshabie, and he also sells all of the rock jewelry he makes in around town at the Creative Nest, and he also sells at Anne, the florist. So you could have seen him around. And we also have our little guy, Brian, who's in 2nd grade. And I know you guys aren't going to be discussing what happened or what took place. And it's investigating, but I would like to note that I would also like Miss Vicky Wells investigated in this process as well. I felt as though things were trying to be shoved under the rug, and had there been transparency and full transparency, then almost half of the school would have shown up on Monday. But there was no transparency. Everything was pushed under the rug until the police came on Monday to address the matter. And as a parent, it is just, I can barely breathe. And so, and with today, the seriousness of all these school shootings, I would think that the school and you, the school board, they would have more of a plan in place to address this more in immediate fashion instead of how the situation arose. It was all misinformation. This is misinformation all weekend until finally it wasn't misinformation. So I really would like Ms. Wells, because the incident had happened previously, looked into and how they responded, because I don't think this should ever happen again, where we can go all week with these two incidences and nobody knows until there's a whistleblower over the weekend, once the staff was told on Friday. So I would, out of all respect for everyone here, like I said, I'm new to coming to these meetings. You will see me coaching my 2nd grade baseball. So, all right. But I wanted to let everybody know is that I would so appreciate it if we could put something in place where we are not just like, you know what I'm saying? It's we need a better plan than what we have. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me talk.
Thank you. Would like to go next? If nobody else, I will. Go ahead.
I'm Rebecca Treya. I also was not planning on speaking. And I also,
Rebecca Treya.
yes, and I also came to say exactly what you said. I want Vicky Wells investigated. On numerous occasions, she has been dishonest with me. And as a direct quote, she wants us to trust our safety. Continue to trust her with the safety of our children. I don't trust Vicky Wells, not only because of multiple times where she has been dishonest to me, but you can't trust somebody without honesty, communication. This was a secret, and a very large secret she kept. And I feel in doing such, she made the decision to not only put all of my children's life in safety, at risk, but also the staff. And the fact that she feels that she can make that decision for my children, and I wasn't given that opportunity to make that decision myself, is appalling, and I'm highly offended.
I appreciate your.
And next time when I come to make a speech, is it okay if I write something?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. I do have more to say, but I'm still quite emotional about the whole thing. And I do not feel safe sending my children back to school.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Lexi Doobie. I also have children and I send emails to some people. I thought these women, I'm not well spoken. I was hoping someone would get up before me because I have terrifying, paralyzing social anxiety. My children go to Neshabe. I got a message at 8 o'clock on Friday that something had happened earlier in the week. Friday night's not the time to be hearing about it. I would also like Vicki investigated. It's not okay. We should have been notified and said, hey, something's happening. We want to give you this opportunity to come get your children. They don't have to tell us anything. We don't want to know who the kid is. We're not asking you to break FERPA. We want a plan in place to know that from now on, children like this are going to be monitored heavily. The items that they bring into the school are going to be checked. That's all we're asking. We're asking for transparency and honesty. You require 3 days notice to have something put on the agenda. That's common decency, if you ask me. We're asking for the same. I'm shaking, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I love my daughters. I almost died having all 3 of them, and I'm sure other people have the same story. Their children are their life. Not only are my children my life, but her children are my life. Her little girl is my life. I love these kids. I don't want to see anything happen. The time to take action is not, and the time to be upset is not after something has happened. We don't want our kids to be next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Dillon. I support these women. I have grandchildren in the school. I have sent my own children to the school, and never in previous years would I have ever expected something like this to have happened and not have been notified within a timely manner. I agree with them. This was not handled properly. There was no transparency there. And in order to get respect, you've got to give it. You've got to respect the parents, not you, the decision makers. They have got to respect the parents enough to let us know what's going on. And one of the things I had seen was, if you can send out a group email about head lice, and you've always been able to, as long as email has been around, you can do it about something this serious. And like I said, I just wanted to stand up and agree with them and put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Is there anyone online who wants to speak? Okay, whoever's hands up, go ahead. I don't see. I know, I just did it. No, I think they're just adjusting. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm blind.
Did you guys want to say anything? Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Lindsay Hall. I have a daughter who is in Neshabe. She's in 3rd grade. Just like everybody else, we were all notified very last minute. I agree with everything that you guys have all said. I would like to speak a little bit on the confidentiality of everything. I've had 2 incidences happen this year with my daughter, with 2 separate students. Both times I was told, don't worry, we'll take care of it. We're handling it. Nobody ever tells us how. And I understand that you don't want to divulge personal information about, minors and about the students. And, I don't think anybody is asking for anything like that. But I think that some of the confidentiality is getting so covered, and just, it's getting to the point where we're not allowed to know anything at all. I'm not allowed to know how my kids are being kept safe. I'm not allowed to know what's happened. Both of those times, I didn't find out from the school, I found out from my daughter. So if you guys could put your heads together and just try and think of something better and try and think of, you know, a better way to keep all of the kids safe and all of the kids protected, I think that that would be a good place to start with everything.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the board? Okay, hearing none, we will be moving on to our meeting and we will again.
Hey,
go ahead.
Lori,
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
sorry.
Right.
I apologize to everyone. I am at work and I wasn't able to sign on right at 6 o'clock. And I feel bad bringing up something other than the concern that the Neshabe parents had. But I believe it is on the agenda, and correct me if I'm wrong. And you can tell me that we can talk about it then, but is there going to be a discussion about the letter to the VPA?
Yes, that is later in the meeting.
Do you want me to wait and comment then?
No, if you have a comment now, I will tell you that that is a rough draft and that was just so that we had a jumping off point. So it could change or not change between now and the end of that discussion.
Okay. So I guess as a parent, I just would like to say that I did read in the minutes that different board members brought up concerns last time that having students and let me go back and say all students having the opportunity to participate in whether it be sports or theater or other things that are interscholastic. I just don't think that it's right for our student population to potentially be punished by withdrawing from the VPA. I also think we have to be very careful about the wording that we choose, because although we're trying to say that this is about freedom of speech, we need to make sure that we are not making this an issue about why this private Christian school was given the actions that they were from the VPA as a public school. And, you know, again, my concern, I raised it before, is about equality for all. And I just want to make sure that we aren't in some way harming future generations of students that may come through from something that we choose to do today.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Lori.
Hi.
It's Sam. Sorry.
Go
So
ahead.
I also was sort of waiting to see if there was an appropriate time to just address the issue of the letter. I will have to leave to run another Zoom meeting, so I'm not going to be here when that part of the agenda is underway. And I also just wanted to say that I read the draft of the letter. I recognize that it's a draft. Even as such, I wanted to just state for the record that I strongly disagree with the draft of the letter. I do not believe this was a freedom of speech issue, and I do not believe that it was a freedom of religion issue. And in fact, I kind of went back and read some of the articles that were written at the time, and the coach from Central Vermont Christian School, actually, her quotes were things like, we made this decision based on, for safety of the girls and that sort of thing, and that we cannot have a biological male play against the girls. And I just wanted to remind everyone that the Long Trail Schools girls team never had any other problems in the past. They were it is a rule that was either set by the State Board of Education or the VPA. I don't actually know how those things work, to be inclusionary. And I think the reason, I know that the draft of the letter says that other schools in the past have chosen to forfeit a game. Those games that were forfeited were not forfeited due to discriminatory reasons. There were a couple games that were forfeited when I know that there was a girls' team that chose not to play against a team that had heckled them in the past. So things like that, they're apples and oranges. They just they're not parallel situations. So I just wanted to say that I just very strongly disagree with that. Here in Vermont, I have 3 kids who have played on sports teams since they were capable of playing on sports teams, and they've played on multiple mixed gender teams because our population is so small that we've sometimes had to do that. We've played indoor soccer with girls and boys on the team. I have an 8th grader who is super tiny and ends up on the floor all the time. There are safety risks when you play sports, whether that's developmental stages of the kids, size of the kids. In this case, this was a discriminatory decision that was made by the school, knowing what the rules were, knowing they were breaking the rules, and now they have to abide by the consequences. And anyway, that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Anyone else who would like to address the board for any reason? Okay, then we are going to conclude public comment and move on to the next. Oh, Jen, sorry. I didn't see you.
I'm sorry, Lori. I was sort of here or there because I don't want to distract from moving on to the letter question. But
That's fine.
I guess what I would like to say about the Neshabie stuff is that it is being, I think, commented on and looked at on social media as a black and white clear issue. And I see where that is, and I have a kid there, and it is terrifying in many ways. Confidentiality issues don't rest with you or us to decide in any way. Those are regulations that we need to follow. And they are frustrating at times, and I understand that. I think it is sad to me to see people commenting without knowing what goes on. And could the school have done a better job of letting us know what was going on? Absolutely. Is it more complex to address these 2 things than head lice? Yes. Head lice is pulling an email out of the archives and changing a couple things and sending it on. These are kids, 6th graders, who are struggling with a lot of things. There's a lot of kids struggling with a lot of things these days. I am ready to say things could have been handled better. I am not ready to say or to really accept anyone saying that there is malevolence, that there is an attempt to hide things from parents. I don't see that that's what happened, and I don't see that there's proof of that. These are complex things that are hard to manage, and different things trickle out at different times. So I don't think people on social media ramping up other people's anxiety helps. And I think all of us want to help. Those people on social media who are ramping up social or people's anxiety also want to help. I get that. I think everyone is scared. This is a scary environment to send your kid to school. Honestly, this was a scary environment to send your kid to school a month ago. And I'm not saying this as Neshabie, I'm saying everywhere. And I personally am not a whole lot more scared right now than I was a month ago. It's the same thing. There are kids that are struggling. And I would say also that to say that the school is trying to hide something, I think is a stretch. I think if you talk to other people who work in school administrations across the state, across the country, they are making decisions as to what they have to make decisions on these credible threats. And that's really hard. And you can say, yes, they should just turn it over to the police and they will make those decisions. And I think there's something to be said for that. You can also, if you think that the other schools in this state, the other schools in this country aren't on an almost daily basis listening to kids say things and having to assess whether that is a credible threat to other people's lives, then you're fooling yourselves. These are not comments that are completely, and it's still impossible to know exactly what anyone said in my mind. But they're not comments that are unheard of in other places. They're not, I would be shocked if this is the first time this happened this year at Neshabie. And as a teacher, one of the hardest things to be a teacher right now, I think, would be to look at various things that kids say. And as someone who works with kids, we see it too. You know, kids say something, and the lesson that they need to learn is you better be careful what you say, because some things that you say, no matter what someone wants, how someone wants to interpret that and say, well, this is a good kid who just said something dumb, they land you with the police, and you can't help that. But it's an unfortunate part of teachers and administrators' jobs to assess these things. And I guess I would just like to say that, you know, I see where there were some things that I bet they wish they went back and did differently. I also see, I see good intent. I don't see malevolence on the part of any of the administrators or of any of the teachers. I think I see people trying to figure out difficult situations. And I would like to ask adults to keep that in mind as they have conversations on the side, as they have conversations on social media. I don't think those are, a lot of what I've seen, I don't think has been helpful to the situation. Thanks.
Thanks, Jed. Anyone else?
Can I ask Jed a question?
No, sorry. I don't know, where are you seeing it? No, that's the cursor. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So. Okay, not seeing anyone else's hand up. I don't see anyone else here. Did you want to speak? I know you came in late. Did you want to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. And there was someone else over in the corner beside? No, did you want to speak?
No.
Okay, all right. So we are going to conclude public comment. Like I said, we will have the Neshabie issue, I suppose is the word I'll use, on the agenda for next week, so that we know the investigation should be over, and we'll be able to talk next Tuesday about what happened and how we can either make things better or go on from there. Okay? Okay. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like. All right. Consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion, please? Thanks. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Who made those?
Oh, it's Fernanda, and then I think it was Kevin. Yeah. Fernanda and Kevin. All those opposed say nay. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, we have a monitoring report 2.4 financial planning and budgeting from Kristen. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look it over, and if you have any questions regarding that, please let me know, please ask. But at this point, I would like someone to make a motion to accept, and then we can discuss. Thanks, Fernanda. And Natalie, discussion? Any questions for Kristen and her report? Okay, hearing none. All of those in favor of the monitoring report 2.4, financial planning and budgeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. The next two monitoring reports are our own monitoring reports for the board. These should be fairly quick. The first one is agenda planning, which is something that I do with Kristen every couple of weeks, and So it's in your packet. If you guys have any questions or anything that we should write down in reasonable interpretation or examples of where we did or didn't follow this, please let me know.
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I've long advocated that we need to have an old business or other business item on the agenda. We often drop things and then they disappear and we don't see them for, months and months at a time. It's bad practice and we lose track of things too. So I would like to see that as a regular thing on our agendas.
So I wouldn't want to really do this one by myself. As far as completing a review of ends policies annually, we are actually have not ever actually done that. We are starting to do that slowly, which is now that we have better ends to look at and how we can break them down so that Kristen can report out on them, you will see more of a review of those ends policies. Probably not all at once. It'll probably be broken down into chunks, probably based on the 6 different areas. And the ends policy.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We need to continually improve the board through board education and enrichment, input and deliberation. As of last month, we had seen Phil Gore, who helped us just get a good basis about good governance, and hopefully we'll continue to have people come and help us do that. Let's see, it provides a mechanism to record and save opportunities for improvements. I think our work plan does that, but you guys could disagree. And allows the board to meet its legal obligations. So that work plan does break it down so that we make sure that we do everything we need to do legally, which is like approve a budget. What else do I have to do legally? Sure, there's lots of things. That's the first one that comes to mind. Oh yeah, yep. Yep, hire staff. The cycle will conclude each year on the last day of June, which it does. So anyone can look at our work plan. It is part of your packet every month. Number 2 says the cycle will start in August with the board's development of its annual work plan for the next year. We do that at our board retreat. And we changed this last year. The chair will provide a report of the board's work from the previous work plan for the annual report, which it did, and in consultation with other board members and the superintendent will create an annual work plan at the August retreat, which we also did. A board member may recommend or request an item for board discussion by submitting the item to the chair no later than 5 days before the agenda is to be warned. We do seem to have problems with that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
as we were at the last meeting, it's an important way for the public to know what we're going to be talking about,
Right.
so that they can be informed and.
Well, the agenda comes out at least 3 days prior to our meeting. So we need at least 5 days in order to get the agenda prepared.
And it seems like a reasonable expectation, especially since, people want to be present for the discussion.
Yeah, I'm probably the prime violator of that, I would expect, and there's a reason for it. The reason is that I can't get things on the agenda quite often, and we, as I said, we drop things frequently. So it's a problem, and I think the problem is that we got to be more open in the items we discuss and our willingness to put them on the agenda in the first place.
If you submit a ninth item to the agenda, you get vetted?
Yes, so I may not, I don't want to get into a public debate, but there have been things that he has asked for that I have put on the agenda and then he wasn't here for a meeting. Or I had on the agenda, he was here and said we didn't discuss it, so he wanted it on the board meeting again. There are other things that don't make sense for the specific next meeting, but there are things that he has asked for that I have put on the agenda. So, and I'm not sure what he's talking about when you say things get dropped. So,
I'll give you some examples if you want, but
Should
If
there
you
be a
feel the need.
limitation to how much you can propose?
no.
Well, I mean, we do have a 2-hour time limit on our meetings,
Mhm.
and we have a lot to accomplish. And I mean, it's arguable that one member sidelining an agenda that's already packed on a regular basis makes it kind of lopsided in what we're trying to do. So, and I've been here a while to see that there, as Lori said, there are times where Mr. Thornton has asked things to be on the agenda and then did not attend the meeting. With the item move on, and then you move on to other business, and that's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. And it doesn't mean things got dropped. It means that we moved on to other things.
Okay, throughout the board will attend to consent agenda items as expeditiously as possible. We do that. One member of the board can remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion. We do that every week. And the superintendent monitoring will be included on the agenda in accordance with the board's schedule, which is on the work plan. And as evidence, we did go over one of our monitoring reports tonight. Yes.
On the previous item 4, it says one member of the board can remove, should that be any member of the board?
Oh, yeah, that should, we can say that. We can say any member or a member, doesn't really, whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right, it just looks like
Yeah.
someone does it. No one
Oh,
else
right,
can.
yeah, that's true, no. So, yeah, it can be one or any. Or a or any. Yeah. All right. All right. So that's 4.3 on agenda planning. The other monitoring report that we have to do is the chair's role, which the chair, specifically empowered member of the board, ensures the integrity of the board's process and secondarily occasionally represents the board to outside parties. The assigned result of the chair's job is that the board behaves consistently with its own rules and those legitimately imposed on it from outside the organization. Meeting discussion content will consist solely of issues that clearly belong to the board to decide or to monitor according to board policy. Do we do this? All right. Information that is for neither monitoring performance nor board decisions will be avoided or minimized and always noted as such. Right. Nor board decision will be minimized and always noted as such. So that's talking about supplemental information, I'm assuming.
So ambiguous, it's hard to say. It almost sounds like not discouraged from sharing information with us, which is not good.
I mean, we're provided with information so that we can determine whether we're in compliance with policies.
Right.
So that's that first part, monitoring performance.
The only,
And board decisions are the things we are empowered to decide upon. We are not brought information about what to buy toilet paper. That's not our purview.
right, and the other thing I think that this talks about is our role as a quasi judicial board. So there is certain kinds of information that we can't have if we have to act in that quasi judicial position.
I mean, I think, you know, occasionally we'll get like letters from different schools about what they're doing. I find that really helpful,
Oh,
you know, stuff like that, but it's not consistent.
well, I will tell you that, I realized last week that we were not getting any of the school, newsletters. And so I talked to Melinda and she had it set up through their email system and something was wrong with it. So she is in the process of fixing that. I don't know if she's fixed it yet, but you should start to see that. Last week was when because, yeah.
We got a Barstow one.
So, yeah, so I'm not sure why we call Barstow, but, and Barstow information is good too. So, but you should start to see everybody's, school newsletter from now on. Cause I had asked for that last year.
And we did used to get it, and you're right, yeah,
Yeah, so I think it was something to do with the email processor or how she had it set up. So that should be fixed now.
It kind of seems like we get the one packet and then it's kind of radio silence. I would say too, that if someone did want something put on the agenda, it kind of stinks that the rest of us don't know if it doesn't make the agenda.
9 times out of 10, it does make the agenda.
No, that's not true. And I also want to address since I've been hammered a couple of times from missing a meeting. I asked for that item to be on the agenda in November. It didn't get on the agenda until February. I had a family emergency and I missed the meeting. But we shouldn't have these delays. I've asked, I think it was in October of this year, to have the equity report put on the agenda for the discussion. It hasn't appeared. You know, the planning for based on that report, it's been ongoing for all those months. We haven't discussed it. So that's the reason, and other examples like that, why I'm terribly frustrated with the agenda process. And that's why sometimes I come in and seek to modify the agenda.
Well, we did have an equity discussion just a couple of months ago at Neshua.
No, we got a report. We didn't get the chance to discuss it. I wanted to discuss the flaws in study, which we haven't discussed, which I first raised over 1.5 years ago. And planning is ongoing. I mean, the train is, I said, we left the station in October, probably at the new destination by now. So, you know, we avoid discussing many important school issues. And, you know, I'd love to be able to have those discussions. And I don't really want to have to fight all the time about just trying to get them on the agenda. It's you know, it's a waste of energy. It's frustrating. It frustrates you when I try to raise these things unexpectedly in your mind. You know, school board members have the right to put items on the agenda, and that has not been happening. That's what they've done.
Is it not at the discretion though? I think the chair has certain discretion in moving things along. And I would argue that there's certain leniency that's been shown that would not exist necessarily on other boards. So
I would indicate that as far as the equity issue that he raises is that was something that was is left to the administration. That was not our purview to pick the person or pick the company that we did the equity audit with. And so therefore I didn't bring it forth because that is part of the administration's job. They pick the equity audit firm, they go through the process, they provide us with a report, we get to say what we like or don't like, or, you know, talk about
I
that
haven't had the
report.
opportunity to talk about why this was terrible social science, and that this is a badly flawed report, that that we should not be proceeding with administrative decisions, and frankly, a rewrite of the curriculum based on it. We haven't had that discussion. I know we haven't had it because I've
Point of order, please. Point of order. He's introducing an agenda item here, and I don't think that's appropriate.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
You're discussing an agenda item. That is not appropriate.
My question is, shouldn't we be discussing things that we need to take action on? I mean, there are certain parts of the meeting that is for discussion and learning, but we also have to work on things that we need to work on, that we can actually make decisions on. Deciding I mean, I hear you that you didn't like the report.
You haven't heard me though, that's
I'm
the
hearing
issue.
you now. But what I'm saying is, my issue isn't about the report, it's about whatever the administration does with the report. And if there's a flaw in what they've done, that's what I want to have a discussion on, not the report itself, because it's the end product that we're looking at. And why is that one report the reason why everything is wrong?
Computer programs have a saying, garbage in, garbage out. You got garbage in.
But do you think that's the only report? So I'm just saying, I want to work on the things that we can actually do, the things that we have the authority to work on. The report was already done. What I care about now is the end product, and that's what we should be discussing at this point.
And we will.
Is that what that key point here on this is? Information that is coming in and monitoring performance from board officials will be avoided to minimize.
That's how I'm reading that, is that unless we have something to do, we shouldn't be doing those things.
Well, I suppose if you wanted to get into it that deep, you could say that, you know, if they were picking a new curriculum, we would not get information about that. What we would get is what they're going to use.
Right.
And then if we had an issue with that, we could talk about it. But the actual item is that they are going to use X, Y, Z, and that is up to Kristen to make it work. Because what we want to do is make sure kids are getting educated.
Mhm.
Let's imagine for a moment that when Jean Collins hired this agency, that she had hired a MAGA outfit to do the report. Are you telling me that we wouldn't have had a discussion about the quality of the report?
I trust that Jean wouldn't make that decision. And that's what it comes down to. I trust the administration to make the right choices. When there comes a point where I don't trust them, then I will question it, but right
Well, I've reached
now-
that point. It's kind of a question.
Well, but we're a board and not individuals, and so, you know, we hire a superintendent and we trust her with her job and we, you know, evaluate her performance and her compliance with our policies. But we are not in the business of getting into her job and then trying to do it for her. And when we say we want to get into the weeds of the report and who hired the person and what, blah, 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 we're getting out of our lane. And there's a reason we're set up this way, is so we don't undermine the person we hire and pay to do a job. It's like a board of directors of a company. You hire a CEO and the CEO does the job. That's policy governance. I know you don't like it, but it works. It works and it keeps us out of the weeds that we aren't supposed to be in. And it enables the person we hire and have faith in to do her job.
Well, I point out that we didn't hire the superintendent, the R&E issued report. And we couldn't fire her either. So, you know, if we're gonna have a gag rule on discussion of our policies, you know, why me? I mean, we had a consultant in here 3 years ago who said, you know, you shouldn't even have 2 meetings a month. You should go out and talk to the you know, people at the senior center and talk up the schools and count that as a meeting once a month. And, you know, go out and go to, you know, various clubs and organizations around town and talk about the schools we're there. And that'll count as a meeting. So you only actually have to do business once a month. I mean, was she right? You know, do we have a purpose?
That Allison Popa, is that who you
I don't remember. It was the one, it was during,
Oh,
no, it was during lockdown.
Yeah.
It was the first meeting we had when we had to wear masks and the tables separately in the cafeteria. Well, it was close to 3 years ago.
Sam?
I'm sorry, but you all are discussing an agenda item that was not warned and no one has had the opportunity to participate in this conversation. And you are half discussing it so that it's not even set up so that anyone who's not a board member can be a part of the conversation. You all were just talking about transparency and now you're doing this After everyone's left the room, Kevin is slipping in an agenda item that has not been warned and it was not approved beforehand. It's completely inappropriate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So getting back to this piece, what does this exactly mean? Information that is for neither monitoring performance from board decisions will be avoided or minimized and always noted as such. So essentially, you know, the information that we get needs to be based on things that we need to make board decisions on or monitoring performance. I think that's what it means.
Well, we clearly get a little bit outside of the.
Sometimes, that's right.
When? Oh, right now, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the whole conversation getting way off track and like Sam said, out of line with what we should or shouldn't be doing. So the top of the worksheet says is it to help us assess our compliance with these things. I don't believe we can be discussing changing or interpreting them. We can discuss whether we feel we're compliant or not. And if we want to have a warned meeting to discuss what these things mean or change them, I think that's totally appropriate, just not right now.
Usually at this point, if you wanted to change, if there was something like that, then we would talk about it here and then we would bring it back for another meeting to make a change to any kind of policy here.
Even though the top of the sheet says it's just for assessment.
It's for assessment and compliance, but this is probably the time where we would notice whether or not we were not doing something, like we were out of compliance and that we were never going to plan on doing it that way. That's how we've changed things in the past.
Which is what I thought I was discussing. And again, even on B here, information that's neither from monitoring performance nor board decision will be avoided. Well, I think my example of the report being flawed is a great example of information that's necessary for monitoring the performance of the superintendent. So this idea that we can kind of narrow it down to put on our blinders and only look at the tiny little pieces that somebody decides are necessary, or it's a phony setup.
I'm going to move away from that for a minute and keep going. We'll come back to it. Deliberation will be fair, open, and thorough, but also timely, orderly, and kept to the point. Yeah. The authority of the chair consists of making decisions that falls within topics covered by board policies and governance process, with the exception of employment or termination of a superintendent, and areas where the board specifically delegates portions of this authority to others. The chair is authorized to use any reasonable interpretation of the provisions in these policies. The chair is empowered to chair board meetings with all the commonly accepted powers of that position, such as ruling and recognizing. Could you use Robert's rule? And I think, yeah. The chair has no authority to make decisions about policies created by the board within ends and executive limitation policy areas. Therefore, the chair has no authority to supervise or direct the superintendent. As chair, I can tell you that I don't do that at all. And the chair may represent the board to outside parties in announcing board stated positions and stating chair decisions and interpretations within the area delegated to him or her, and report such activity at the next meeting of the board.
This is a little comment because
Yeah.
we should move to change him and her to there throughout all of these.
Okay. So the only time I represent the board to outside parties is usually if the newspaper contacts me. I don't usually do it anywhere else unless people are asking me specifically about what the board's position is on something when I'm talking to individuals. The chair may delegate this authority but remains accountable for its use. I haven't delegated it, but I haven't had a reason to do so.
Well, I'm going to shock you, Lori, by complimenting you and saying that I think you do a pretty good job of representing the board's positions to the press.
Appreciate that. The chair will ensure that the board fulfills its obligations and works to improve the board's performance. I'm trying to do that. And the chair is empowered and expected to assure that public and board behavior be limited to properly addressing agenda and policy issues in a mutually respectful and civil fashion. I think we did that okay tonight. A couple of weeks ago, maybe not so well. So it's a work in progress. Okay. So next up, discussion regarding the letter to the BPA. Everybody should have had the letter that Kevin wrote. I hope you came with your changes or discussion items regarding this. You've heard from a couple of members of the public about the BPA. Yes, sir.
I'd like to move that we do not send a letter to the BPA related to the MDCS expulsion from the BPA.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
So I've got 4 points here. So I believe that this letter is not what it purports to be, and that it's not an issue of religious freedom or conscience. The letter is a stance on transgender human rights. The issue is first described as freedom of speech and then moved to freedom of religion, which seems like a separate tactic to treat the letter. And ultimately, I think the board would be taking an inflammatory stance against this policy by sending this letter. So the 4 points I have, which I have details for, I can go into or not. It's not here too much time. Is the facts of the issue don't support the views of the letter. The main one being that the issue is not about religious freedom, as one of the community members noticed before. The Mid-Vermont Christian School makes no claims of limited freedoms or censorship. They claim that it's an issue of safety and fairness. Second point is that the BPA decision is in line with OVUU policies, and it would be misguided of us to disagree with the decisions based on the same policy adopted. Those policies are RNESU policy AC, which is a non-discrimination policy, and RNESU policy J2021008E, which in our policies, there's a lot of really easy 2 letters, and then I kind of skipped those things. But that policy is the transgender student policy. So specifically what our policies state that is in line with their decision is that it's not our district, it's not lawful to discriminate, or it is unlawful to deny admission or access or exclude participation in any of the, paraphrase here, school events based on gender identity. The other policy states students will be permitted to participate in accordance with their gender identity. The third point is that there's no lifetime ban for the MDCS school. It's reported in the Manchester Journal that the BPA Assistant Executive Director, Lauren Thomas, her quote is, "Leadership at MVC is welcome to demonstrate commitment to BPA policies and seek admittance to the Executive Council," which goes into my 4th point, which is that the letter needs significant fact checking. It seems to be full of exaggerations and inaccuracies. One example is that the letter states in paragraph 5 that the BPA is forcing millions of people. The BPA only has the ability to coerce people in Vermont. The Vermont population is 645,000 people. Again, every single human being in Vermont that's a resident felt coerced. It falls well short. So that seems like an exaggeration. There seems to be. I'll leave it at that. I have further details on all these points, but for brevity's sake.
Fernanda.
Yeah, I agree with
the points that you're making, as a matter of fact, I think they're included in my reflections. I also wanted to say the idea of safety and fairness, if we wanted to go in that route, that there has been mixed gender sports playing all along. As a matter of fact, I have former students who have been a female who has been a quarterback in a Otter Valley football team. I just came from unified basketball where students were playing, females and males mixed. I've been in a, just this weekend, I have experienced that a lot. So that to me seems like a weak argument. It doesn't hold water in regards to what the argument is that the school is making, and that it is indeed hiding a secondary objective. And so there is that to add. And I feel like we've always, there's been places where we've always tried to make a line in regards to who can play and who can't. In the past, it's been people of color. Sometimes it's been playing against students who are gay because they might be spreading HIV. I remember those years as well, when we had to limit participation because we were concerned in that forefront. There's always seems to be a reason to exclude, and it hasn't come forward. So I just support the fact that I don't believe that that letter should be written. As a matter of fact, I'm opposed to that, and I'm in support of the decision that the BPA has made.
Other discussion?
Oh, I guess I'll take a shot at it. Jeremy, I want to assure you that it's perfectly fair, I'm the author of the letter, to accuse me of intellectual incoherence and slockiness and factual error. That's fine, but I want to assure you both that the idea that this is intentionally deceptive or is a malevolent hidden agenda here is just incorrect. I thought that I was as forthright as I could be. Rather than getting into the weeds of all your points, I'm just going to make a really simple one. I'm going to quote Orwell. This is from an introduction he wrote to Animal House that Animal Farm, excuse me, that was published posthumously in 1972. Animal House is a whole different matter. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. I think that's what's at stake here. I think it's a pretty simple matter. The Mid-Vermont Christian didn't challenge the BPA's rules. They just said that they didn't want to participate in a given game. They suffered the consequence of losing, and their students couldn't advance in the playoffs. It seems to me a principled stance, and that we should support people who take principled stances. That's all I have to say.
Others? Yeah.
I agree with Jeremy Fernando. I think also it's a Christian school, it's a private Christian school that voluntarily decides to be part of VPA. VPA has set rules. The school knows what the rules are, and they violated those rules. So to me, it was pretty cut and dry, in that I feel like they're trying to make a political statement, and they're also involved in litigation to try to reverse Biden's decision on having transgender play in sports. So I don't think it's a good idea for us to get involved or make any statement at all when there's currently litigation involved.
Yeah. Okay, so we're ready to vote on this motion?
Motion is to minus the confusion.
The motion, I believe, and Charlene, you can repeat it back, but I believe the motion by Jeremy was to not write this letter and not send anything to the VPA.
Right.
That is correct?
Yes, Jeremy and then Barbara seconded.
Okay. So all of those in favor of not writing this letter to the VPA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, I need hands. Aye. Okay, all those opposed?
Nay.
Two. Okay, so
Can we get the names recorded in the minutes, please?
I decline to vote.
thank you, Eric.
So it was Brent and you were the only no's.
Yeah,
You were two abstaining.
and then two abstentions. Eric and Brent were abstentions.
Okay.
Okay, so
Or can I make a comment?
yes, absolutely.
I think it's important for us to, as a board, to make sure we are discussing things we appear to be discussing. And that was one of the challenges I had with voting on this letter and the idea of discussing various freedoms and abilities that, if the concern is transgender student rights, great, let's discuss that. Let's not discuss that under the guise of freedom of speech or religion or things like that. So I would just ask that if we are going to have open discussion, and the framework be as open and transparent as possible.
Jeremy, I need to respond to that too. That wasn't my concern. This is not some kind of secret attack on transgender student rights. Without getting into personal matters, I'm just going to ask you to trust that that was what I meant.
Okay. All right.
Both can be true, right there. I mean, you can support transgender rights and also support Christian schools, right? And not.
Right, yeah, which I agree with completely. But that wasn't how this was framed. That was more what I took issue with. It felt like we were in a very oblique way trying to discuss something instead of just going head on. And that's all I'm getting at. It's like if we want to say we think this Christian school should be allowed to not follow the anti-discrimination policy, let's just be really okay.
Most said draft, big red letters.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Jeremy, because I felt the same. I felt that the letter wasn't really talking about what we needed to talk about was, is it unconstitutional to ask a Christian school to agree to something like that? I think that's what you were getting at, was it was unconstitutional to ask them to agree to this, these rules. So does VPA need to change the rules to allow for exceptions? That's more of what we were talking about, right?
Well, I would rephrase it slightly. I'd say it was unconstitutional to punish them for their opinions.
But they voluntarily joined this group knowing that these were the rules. So to then make a decision knowing that you're in this organization and these are the expectations, they're trying to make a statement, in my opinion. Their statement would be to not even join the VPA if they don't agree with it.
So then better not forfeit the game and not saying why, just forfeit the game.
Yes,
But
they could have easily just forfeited and not said a word and then
So
fine.
we're saying stuff that we really don't know what we're talking about. What their consequences specifically, did they know what they could be, or did VP just make them up?
No, they're quite clear. I researched all of this. It's quite clear. And diversity and inclusion and gender, that's policy 1 and 2 under the VPA rules. So they knew what they were signing.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on. RNESU board update. I can tell you that we met 2 weeks ago. We reorganized our board. We have 2 new members from Barstow on the board. Oh no, we have 1. Sorry, we have 1. That's right. So yeah, so we have 1 new board member from Barstow. The OBUU board members are the same. And that is pretty much all we did, was reorganized last time. We will be talking about preschool choice again this coming next week. So like we always do around this time. That is the RNESU board update.
I have a comment on the RNSU board update.
Sure.
I know last month, the month before, were kind of a mess with elections, and we had some meetings that were busy. But I didn't like what happened with the school resource officer. And the fact that we really weren't even made aware of it, I found out from the paper.
So that was not our, is that our ESU? Yeah, I guess it is. But that was from a grant that you got. Was a grant, it wasn't with the RNESU board.
Understood,
Okay,
but that's not how we should have found out. So I understand there was underlying things that probably distracted us from having that conversation, but
okay.
there, I don't know, maybe an email or something with a summary or something. I don't know how to fix it, but
Well, we'll try to make sure that we give you more information. I guess I just assumed that everyone knew about the RSO. And I guess I'll take the blame for that one.
We not discussed.
Well, I don't know. So I'll just take the blame. I have broad shoulders. So, I'll try and make sure that that doesn't happen to you again or anyone else. Jeremy.
Would it be reasonable for this board to get the RNSU agenda?
Well, they're all online, so you can look at them there. I mean, she does send out the Hawk Hill to all the OVU board members. I suppose we could send out the RNESU one as well. But you won't get minutes. I mean, you'll get minutes from the previous month. So if you want to know exactly what happened, probably should go online and see them there. But I can ask Melinda to start sending those to everyone.
But Jeremy, your point was to hear about it before we hear it in the paper.
yeah.
Well, and
yeah.
sometimes that doesn't happen because we might not have heard about it until it hit the paper, to be completely honest.
I understand, and I know that was a very busy time. It's just, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of transparency between the boards. And since we have several members on the board, it feels like it should be.
Okay.
Speaking about different boards, we haven't had a Stafford report, in over a year, I'm
Oh.
sure. I would like to do that.
How often do you go?
The meetings are quarterly.
Okay.
Can
you just email me when you have one and then
Sure,
we'll make sure we
yeah.
add it to the agenda?
And
That's not a problem.
it's in the Hawk Hill, will be a short
Okay,
information.
just email me after you have a meeting. Thanks. Okay, review board annual work plan. We will be having a couple of presentations next week, mainly on mental health and emotional. Thank you. I put the wrong word in front of the wrong. Social and emotional learning, and then we will also have another one, or they both together. That's the two.
Mental health and safety.
Mental health.
And emotional learning.
There we go. Perfect. So we will be doing that next week. And we will also be getting an update on the RNE or the that should be school.
Incidents
There we go. Thank you.
and facilities.
Right, and we will be looking at facilities and summer work next week because Brenda's going to be bringing that.
Were we supposed to have a legal report on all the issues that were raised with the contentious meeting about locker rooms and so forth?
So that I pushed off till May, and only because Brenda will probably be talking about some of that next meeting with the summer projects, because she did talk to a vendor about potentially making some changes to the locker room. So that'll be brought up next week. Or next week. Okay. Superintendent's report.
I've been updating you on PCBs in schools. There right now is a bill in legislation to pause PCB testing, not because PCBs don't exist in our schools, but because they know that they rolled out the testing before they had the funds or the infrastructure to support it. So basically what they're saying is kind of do take a hiatus, come back to the committee, come back with federal dollars to support it. There's a link to an article that a 7 Days reporter did that's really, really well done in my opinion. We give a comprehensive look on what PCB and testing or the history behind it is. all that being said, Otter Valley Union Middle and High School is first up for RNESU. So if they don't pause, then we're up. And so once you're up, right? So they have already reached out. They're scheduled for testing this spring. Brenda and Rich have given them the initial building maps. So if the testing does go forward before the legislation changes, if it does change, by the way, it basically, the testing consists of two parts: a pre-sampling building material inventory, which takes a look at every part of the building that happened prior to 1980. And then they also do an indoor air sampling event throughout the building. So who knows? Stay tuned for more information. But again, there's a great article if you're interested in kind of the history, the what, the why, and where it sits right now. RNESU, so the entire system, so OVU is doing a local assessment kind of overhaul update, and a part of that is to comply with Act 173 state guidance and the need to really beef up comprehensive assessment system. So the benchmark assessments in ELA and math for all students grades 3 to 10 will be STAR 360. We haven't been overly thrilled with it, and then some. We received the AOE benchmark grant to fund this, which is great news. Panorama, which is our current SEL, social emotional learning screener, will continue to be used for next year. And Super Kids for K-2 in ELA will also continue to be used. I've mentioned this before, the state has changed from SBAC to Cognia for this year. No one knows why. And the test window opens April 12th, but RNESU schools, so all the OB schools, grades 3 and up, will start that after April break. So there's just a little information about that. Similarly to SBAC testing, ELA will happen grades 3 to 9, mathematics grades 3 to 9, and science 5, 8, and 11.
I think a question about transferring to a very different assessment platforms. Is there a realistic way to compare SBAC to Cognia and then other things going forward, or is it just starting over each time?
Do you have anything to add?
It is, essentially it is starting over each time. With where we are with the assessment for this year and how it was rolled out. This year is definitely going to be interesting because of where we are with the process. I can guarantee you that our systems and structures are in place to do the test with fidelity. But then again, it is in the test. So we'll have to see how that out.
Interestingly, the Cognia switch is by the same producers that made kneecap. So the first iteration, the first beat the cap, right? Those tests, same vendor. So the state says there may be some commonality between SBAC and Cognia, but no one really knows until you start to take it.
Part of what's embedded in the question too is that we got the report last year and had the presentation from the guy who ran all the data, and it was too much at once. I didn't see it. I got something home from the school that was comparing just few grades at OCA. And it was, I think 6th grade was at 12% of kids were at or above grade level, which seemed exceptionally low. So it would have been not last year, the preceding year. It's how it's switching through all these tests. How do we say, okay, only 12% of kids in 6th grade were at grade level? How do we monitor what's not really true of the? What do we do with that in terms of having new plan in place?
Well, yeah, so we are, like I said, we're switching our benchmark assessment to the definitely more robust in its monitoring of students. And we are in the process of a curriculum overhaul that just been started really in December with our teacher leader group, starting at the pre-K to 6th level. So tying those two together is really helpful to make sure we can align things so that we are assessing what we need to assess and make sure our students are also then getting the information they need for those, for their grade level.
Yeah, so by only by beefing up our local common assessments, are we going to be able to really stay true to like our accountability measures? Because we never have any idea. We don't know what cognitive is going to look like. We don't know how it compares to SBAC. You know, we don't know what we'll be able to show, but with our local common assessment system, we hope that we will be able to say, okay, here's actually how our students are doing.
And you were talking about sometimes when we make these overhauls from
A pause year?
a pause year,
No.
where there's no accountability.
No, they're getting a tremendous amount of pushback from the Vermont superintendents, the Vermont curriculum leaders, and VPA to say, hey, you need a benchmark year. There's huge questions about fidelity even at the state. So say Tyler feels like all the OVU schools RNESU are in a really good place, meaning our teachers are trained, we've got the infrastructure, we've got the hardware, but the state still is rolling out almost daily different guidance and updates. And like, oh yes, we got this question about how a teacher can put in accommodations. Here's our answer. Oh yes, Barbara asked a wonderful question from Woodstock. Here's our answer. So the window is opening now. People are starting to take it. That's a tough measure. So right now we haven't heard about a pause in either the accountability system or a pause in the participation rate, which is another sort of question. The other piece of Cognia is Cognia has a 5 day window only. So if a student starts a test and can't finish it, they only have 5 days to complete it. So if I'm home with COVID or something happens, I have to completely redo that test. That has implications for our participation rate.
We're not alone in this.
No.
I attend a AOE Cognia office hour every Thursday, and this is all us. And this is every school that are really not getting the answers we need to get right away. And as Kristen said, the test administration manual that is pretty much our how-to guide on how to do this was updated last week. So.
But teachers are frustrated, definitely, around the state.
Just add that kneecap is gonna be the most unfortunate educational term of all time.
Right?
Right?
And beat the cap.
Yeah.
Beat the cap.
We're kneecapping our students.
Yeah.
But as Kristen said, I can tell you that we are prepared.
Anything?
Nope. Okay. Then our next meeting is next Tuesday, because we want to meet a lot this month. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:18. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you.